Was that sort of a major influence, that whole sort of September 11th post thing, whilst you were doing the album?
I think it's just sort of, it's been, I think it's a gradual change in the world. I think, you know, as well as what happened on September 11th and what's happening in the Middle East right now, and as well as you know, in sort of the way American foreign policy is being so, it's so brutal at the moment, and I think, you know, the problems in India and Pakistan, in Africa, and civil wars everywhere, you know, and the world's such a much smaller place now, you know, in terms of travel and communication, that things are quite literally next door. You know, they feel that way whereas when you were younger, in a different world, it felt like it was someone else's problem. And being in England, having a very safe, cosy environment to a certain extent, you know, not for all of us, but, you know, in the sense that we're here and we're talking about it, you know, we've never sort of really had to survive wars and famines and sort of major sort of social problems, you know, not all of us, you know, so I think that's starting to sort of feel like there's a change going on there, you know, people don't feel so secure, I feel, you know.
So there's a little bit of a panic going around.
I think it's not so much a panic yet in sort of most of Western Europe, where it's sort of mostly consumer consuming still, you know, but I think, you know, people are starting to get more paranoid and more, and maybe hopefully that instead of breeding madness or kind of like, you know, sort of bigotry, it will turn itself into something more positive and more realistic, you know, and people start to think about the effect of our world on other worlds, you know.
How did you get together with Damon to, you know, do the protesting? How did that come about?
I've known Damon for, you know, a while now, and I think not just Damon but other people around me are feeling sort of very frustrated with the way what's happening, you know, and the way that we seem to be sort of like sort of heading directly towards war without having any sort of opportunity or any democracy or any forum to sort of debate it or to stop it happening, and that feeling of not having the power to do anything about it, and the fact that you can't answer the question why we're going to war, and if you can't answer the question why your country's about to go to war, then you've got to do something about it. And I think we felt at that point there was too much head shaking, too much kind of like throwing up your hands and let's do something about it. And we're very aware that as individuals we have to be careful not to kind of like make it into a personality thing, and just try and keep it very, very black and white, very, very straightforward, and work with other organisations that are sort of doing a lot to sort of try and campaign for peace, Stop the War, CND, and let them kind of like let them provide the opportunities for people to sort of like get involved in whichever way they felt possible, and us present the sort of like the idea, you know.
There was a quote in NME, I think this week, with you saying something like, if your friends don't come on the demo, then they're not going to be your friends for a bit. So is that true? There's I mean, not distant friends, but close. There's a lot of close friends that I've talked about, you know, like all of us have been discussing the world at the moment, and a lot of people that seem frustrated and confused, and I think, well, you know, we've talked about it, and they know there's a way they can make themselves heard, even if it's a very small voice, and there's a demonstration, there are petitions. So if they don't do it, then they've been wasting my time and theirs by discussing it, you know, continually. If they're not really interested, then they should shut up about it, you know, and just get on with their lives blindly, you know. That's true. When is the demo taking place?
15th of February.
Right.
Obviously, there's been debate as to whether they're going to let it sort of congregate in Hyde Park, and if that's going to happen, or they're going to make it congregate somewhere else. But I think a lot of people have been saying in opposition to this, that is there any point to it? We're going to go to war anyway. You know, the decisions have been taken. It's inevitable. And I think, well, if you can get, you know, up to 1 million people out on the streets that day, regardless of if this doesn't help stop us going to war this time, it will set a precedent for the future. Whatever happens with, you know, with our government, if they stay in power, if they don't, people will always remember this day and will point towards it. The same way we talk about the Vietnam sort of war protests. I think it's really important that people show themselves at this point and make their feelings heard.
Government seems so. It just seems to be. It's always roller coasted over whatever the British public has said. It would be good to see that.
I think so. You know, people. It might seem like a very sort of simple, tiny gesture taken to the streets on one day in terms of what it can actually achieve in stopping the war. But I think it is about using your right to using the amazing right of free speech that a lot of people don't have in other countries, and taking advantage of that. And I think if this does happen, and it is a momentous occasion with a lot of people, it will set a standard, you know, in a way.
Do you think musicians have got something to say, or you know, in terms of politics and stuff? Because I was having this conversation with someone recently, and I was saying, yeah, that, you know, all the protest songs, and, you know, can really change the world.
I think it was my dad actually, and he was going, no, it's just a song that people like to whistle.
There's always the argument. I think that's what musicians are scared of, because in the same way of this anti-war thing that me and Dane really believe strongly in, we're also aware that some people might see it as ridiculous, you know. In the same, you know, I mean, some people are going to Baghdad to sort of be human shields. I mean, that is putting your money where your mouth is. That's believing in something. In that context, you look at what you do, you think, am I really doing enough? Am I just going that bit of distance because I'm frustrated and worried, but have I really got the guts to take it all the way? And I think that's same with the song, you know, to commit to pen and paper and record something that is, I think it's about having the ability to convey what you feel in a very sort of realistic and understandable way that makes sense to other people, and I don't know if I have that ability. You know, I think only a few people have managed to do that in history, really, in song form.